This is the overview for Chapter 11. In Chapter 11, there's a focus on race and ethnicity, particularly how those two terms are used in the United States. As you will learn, race is a socially constructed concept. That means society created a meaning for race. In the United States, when we talk about race, we are talking about how someone looks. So we're talking really about physical appearance. We're talking about skin color, hair type, facial features, etc. We typically base race on how a person looks. So, for example, I am classified by the US Census Bureau as, by race, white. Now, I do not feel white. I do not identify as white. But racially, the US Census Bureau classifies me as white because I look more like whites than I do like Asians, Pacific Islanders, or Blacks. When it comes to ethnicity, this is a newer term you will learn, and it is an improvement over the idea or the concept of race, but it's not perfect either. Most people can look at me and know that I am brown. However, within the umbrella of Latinx or Latino people, there are lots of different groups. I happen to be of Mexican ancestry. That's what most people assume. However, there are lots of people who are of Central American ancestry, for example, who also typically are labeled by others as being of Mexican ancestry, when in fact they are not. And so, again, even though we do have this concept that helps us to understand a person's background, we still typically use physical appearance to place them into one of those categories. You can also consider people who are Afro-Latino. I have two nephews. They're Afro-Latino. People look at them, and most people simply identify them as being Black, when in fact they are Afro-Latino, and that is how they identify. So you will find in this chapter that we don't have a perfect term in trying to understand or classify which groups people belong to. And so I always think the best way to identify how someone thinks of themselves is to ask rather than just assume. In addition, in this chapter, you will learn about prejudice, which is how we think about others, how we feel about others, and you will learn about discrimination, which is action. We typically act on our prejudices. You can only, though, discriminate against someone if you have power. If you don't have power, you might just be the most bigoted person out there, but unless you have power where you can exercise your power to treat someone negatively, then you're not actually engaging in discrimination. Quick example here. If I don't like purple students, I can discriminate against purple students by giving them a lower grade, not calling on them in class, not allowing them to turn in late work, etc., when I allow other students to do these things. By the way, I do not discriminate against students that way. However, that's an example. On the other hand, what if a purple student doesn't like Latinx teachers? What's that purple student going to do to me? What kind of power do they really have inside the classroom when we're in the classroom? What power do they really have to discriminate against me, to treat me in a negative way? Yeah, you might say they could, question everything I say. They could talk while I'm talking, be disrespectful, etc. But that doesn't really hurt me. It doesn't harm my job. It doesn't cause me to lose wages. It doesn't cause me to lose my job. That really is just an annoyance. It's not really power. So in this chapter, again, I hope that you will learn a lot about how this country operates. And many of the social institutions we have in the United States were created for white people. They were not created for people of color. And so they've been pushed to adjust. It's not that these institutions adjusted and became more inclusive because it was the right thing to do. Lawsuits were filed, the civil rights movement occurred, et cetera. And so they were forced really to be more inclusive. Fascinating chapter, one of my favorites. I hope that you enjoy it too.